Let's rewind to the moment Meghan Markle decided Paris Fashion Week needed her presence. This wasn't a planned appearance. This wasn't months of coordination with publicists and designers. This was an 11th-hour decision that sent shockwaves through an already meticulously planned event. Imagine being one of the models who'd rehearsed for weeks, or a designer who'd poured their soul into every stitch, only to wake up and discover that Meghan Markle was about to hijack your entire show. Because that's exactly what happened. The fashion house had everything lined up: the lighting, the music, the choreography, every single detail crafted to showcase their new collection. And then Meghan decided she wanted in. Not because she had a long-standing relationship with the brand, not because she'd been invited months in advance, but because someone somewhere convinced her this was the perfect opportunity to remind the world she still matters. And here's the kicker: the creative director absolutely welcomed her with open arms. Why wouldn't he? Free worldwide publicity on a scale most designers can only dream about. Whether you love Meghan or can't stand her, everyone was talking about the brand the second she walked in. That's marketing gold. The new creative director couldn't have asked for a better launch into the spotlight. Controversy sells, and Meghan Markle is walking, breathing controversy. But the cost of that publicity? Astronomical. Every headline the next day was about Meghan. Not about the collection, not about the craftsmanship, not about the vision behind the designs, just Meghan. Her outfit, her hair, her expression. The models who'd worked their entire careers for a moment like this got shoved to the sidelines. The makeup artists who'd created looks for weeks got zero recognition. The entire team behind the show became background noise in the Meghan Markle circus. And the average person watching at home? They're never going to buy a single piece from this collection. It's too expensive. It's too exclusive. The fashion house caters to a very specific clientele, and Meghan's appearance didn't change that. Sure, maybe someone out there with deep pockets saw something they liked, but the real audience, the everyday people who make up the bulk of social media chatter, they're not shopping there. They're just watching the drama unfold. But here's where the story takes a darker turn. Behind closed doors, people are starting to ask questions. How did this happen so fast? Who coordinated the logistics? Who paid for Meghan to fly halfway across the world, stay at one of Paris's most prestigious hotels, and glide around in chauffeured cars? Because those bills don't just disappear. Someone had to sign off on them. Someone had to transfer money. And the more insiders started digging, the more they realized that Meghan's version of events didn't quite add up. The creative director says they were just texting. Meghan's team hints at a mutual collaboration, but the receipts tell a completely different story. And when you follow the money, the entire carefully constructed narrative starts to crumble. Let's talk about the puppet master behind this entire Paris spectacle, Marcus Anderson, the man who's been glued to Meghan's side for years, the one person she seemingly can't shake off even when everything around her is falling apart. He's not just a friend, he's a strategist, a connector, a man who knows that every time Meghan's name hits the headlines, his does too. It's symbiotic, it's calculated, and according to insiders, this Paris Fashion Week stunt was his brainchild from the very beginning. Sources close to the situation reveal that Marcus was the one who pitched the idea of Meghan reinventing herself in a completely different arena. Forget Hollywood, forget streaming deals and podcasts that go nowhere. Fashion is where the real power players operate, and Marcus knew it. He allegedly started planting seeds, making connections, reaching out to people who could make this Paris appearance happen, and Meghan, desperate for any kind of win, jumped at the opportunity. But here's where their supposedly unshakable friendship hit a major snag. During the fashion show, a model stumbled on the runway. It happens. High heels, slippery surfaces, intense pressure. Anyone with an ounce of empathy would show concern. But Meghan? She laughed. Right there, with cameras trained on her face, she laughed at someone else's misfortune. And Marcus Anderson was absolutely furious. Insiders claim he was livid behind the scenes. He knew those cameras were capturing every flicker of expression, every reaction, every moment. He'd orchestrated this entire appearance to rebuild Meghan's image, and she just handed the tabloids ammunition on a silver platter. The headlines the next day weren't about her stunning outfit or her triumphant return to the spotlight. They were about her laughing while someone struggled. That's not the narrative Marcus was going for. And let's be real, that laugh revealed something deeper. It showed a complete lack of awareness, a fundamental misunderstanding of how to behave in public when every move is being scrutinized. Marcus has spent years trying to manage Meghan's public persona, and moments like that make his job nearly impossible. You can orchestrate the perfect event, secure the perfect venue, coordinate the perfect entrance, but you can't control someone who doesn't understand the game they're playing. Their friendship, once described as unbreakable, is now reportedly hanging by a thread. Marcus benefits from his association with Meghan, but there's only so much damage control one person can do. And when your client keeps sabotaging herself at every turn, eventually you have to wonder if it's worth the effort. But Marcus didn't just help coordinate the Paris trip. According to sources, he was involved in the financial arrangements too. The hotel bookings, the transportation, the entire logistics operation. He knew who was paying for what. He knew the truth behind the scenes. And now that the story is unraveling, he's stuck between protecting Meghan and protecting his own reputation. Because when those hotel bills started circulating, when people started asking who really funded this Parisian adventure, Marcus's name kept coming up. And that's a problem neither of them can laugh away. Now let's talk about the moment the entire carefully crafted narrative fell apart. The creative director, riding high on all the publicity Meghan's appearance generated, sat down for an interview. He was probably feeling confident, maybe a little too comfortable. And that's when he said something that completely contradicted the story Meghan's team had been pushing. He admitted they barely knew each other. They'd been texting back and forth. That's it. No long-time friendship. No deep professional relationship. Just casual messages between two people who saw an opportunity. This revelation is absolutely devastating for Meghan's version of events. Her team had been spinning this as some kind of organic collaboration, a mutual admiration between fashion minds, a meeting of creative souls who just happened to align at the perfect moment. But the creative director just pulled back the curtain and showed everyone the truth. They were strangers coordinating a publicity stunt through text messages. And it gets worse. The outfit Meghan wore down that runway, the dress everyone was analyzing and critiquing, it wasn't even designed for her. Insiders reveal it was created for another A-list celebrity, someone with actual fashion credibility, someone who presumably looked at the opportunity and decided to pass. Maybe they sensed the desperation. Maybe they didn't want to be associated with whatever this was turning into. Whatever their reasons, they said no. So Meghan got the hand-me-down, the rejected dress. The outfit that was literally made for someone else's body, someone else's moment, someone else's brand, and she accepted it without hesitation. Free designer clothes? Absolutely. Doesn't matter that it wasn't meant for her. Doesn't matter that she was second choice, or maybe even third or fourth. She took what she could get. Think about what that says. Meghan Markle, who constantly positions herself as this powerful, independent woman who doesn't need anyone's approval, is out here accepting rejected outfits just to get her foot in the door. That's not the behavior of someone with options. That's the behavior of someone so desperate for relevance that they'll take whatever scraps are offered. And the creative director's slip-up didn't just expose the weak relationship, it exposed the entire transactional nature of this arrangement. He got worldwide publicity. She got photos for Instagram and a chance to pretend she's still a player in elite circles. Nobody was doing this out of genuine respect or admiration. It was pure calculation on both sides. But here's the thing about trying to control a narrative when you're dealing with multiple parties. Everyone has to stick to the same story. You have to coordinate your messaging, make sure every interview aligns, ensure nobody accidentally reveals something that contradicts the official version. And that takes skill, preparation, and people who actually know what they're doing. Meghan doesn't have that. Her team can't even keep a simple origin story straight. The creative director says they were texting. Meghan's camp hints at a deeper connection. And now everyone's wondering what else they're lying about. If they can't be honest about how they met, what else are they hiding? Here's where things get truly humiliating for Meghan. William Morris Endeavor, one of the most powerful talent agencies in the world, the company that's supposed to be building her brand and turning her into a global superstar, did absolutely nothing when she showed up in Paris. Zero promotion, zero fanfare, zero acknowledgement whatsoever. Their social media stayed completely silent. Their website didn't get updated with a single press release celebrating their client's major fashion moment. Nothing. Let's put this in perspective. When an agency represents someone, especially someone they're actively trying to build up, they capitalize on every opportunity. Every appearance gets promoted. Every milestone gets announced. Every achievement gets plastered across their platforms because that's how you demonstrate value to current and potential clients. You show the world that signing with your agency means getting support, visibility, and strategic promotion. But Meghan showed up at Paris Fashion Week, generated headlines around the entire planet, and her own agency treated it like it never happened. That's not an oversight. That's not someone forgetting to post. That's a deliberate decision to distance themselves from whatever this was. And that decision speaks volumes about how William Morris Endeavor really views their relationship with Meghan Markle. Think about what other celebrities get from their agencies. Coordinated press releases, strategic partnerships, brand deals that make sense, public support during major appearances. These agencies have entire departments dedicated to making sure their clients look good and stay relevant. Meghan has none of that. She's out here winging it, making last-minute decisions, crashing events, and her agency is just watching from the sidelines like they're observing a car crash in slow motion. Industry insiders are already whispering about what this silence means. When an agency goes quiet on a client, it usually signals one of two things. Either they're preparing to part ways, or they've already mentally checked out and are just running out the clock on the contract. Neither scenario is good for Meghan. Both scenarios suggest that the people who are supposed to be invested in her success have given up. And you know what makes this even more embarrassing? Other clients at William Morris Endeavor get the full treatment. Their appearances get amplified. Their projects get promoted. Their brands get built with precision and care. Meghan gets radio silence. She's paying for representation and getting absolutely nothing in return. Or maybe she's not paying, and that's part of the problem. Maybe the agency realized she's more trouble than she's worth. Because here's the reality. Agencies want clients who listen, clients who take direction, clients who understand that building a brand requires strategy, patience, and consistency. Meghan does the opposite. She makes impulsive decisions, ignores advice, and then wonders why nothing sticks. And William Morris Endeavor has apparently decided they're not interested in fighting that battle anymore. So while Meghan was strutting around Paris thinking she'd just pulled off a major coup, her own agency was back in Los Angeles pretending she doesn't exist. That's not how you build a career. That's how a career quietly dies. Now we get to the part that exposes everything. The receipts, the invoices, the paper trail that nobody can deny or spin away. Because while Meghan was posing for cameras outside the Plaza Athénée, acting like she'd personally chosen this luxurious Parisian hotel as part of her sophisticated European adventure, someone behind the scenes was quietly paying the bills. And it wasn't her. Insiders with access to the financial records reveal that the fashion house covered everything. The hotel suite at one of Paris's most prestigious addresses, the limousine services that shuttled her around the city. The entire operation was bankrolled by the brand, not by Meghan Markle. And here's why that matters. When you're footing your own bill, you're in control. You're making independent choices. But when someone else is paying, you're basically their guest, their investment, their promotional tool. Meghan would never open her own purse for something like this. Sources confirm she had zero intention of spending her own money to fly halfway around the world for a fashion show. There had to be something in it for her beyond just publicity. Free accommodation, free transportation, free designer clothes. That's the only way this trip made sense from her perspective. And the fashion house, desperate for that worldwide attention, was willing to pay the price. But now that the truth is coming out, both sides are scrambling to rewrite the narrative. The brand is trying to distance itself from the financial arrangements, probably realizing that paying for Meghan's entire Parisian adventure makes them look desperate. And Meghan's team is staying suspiciously quiet about who funded what, hoping people will just assume she handled everything herself, like the independent businesswoman she pretends to be. Except the receipts don't lie. The invoices are time-stamped, the credit card statements exist, and people who work in hospitality, people who process these transactions, they talk. Privacy agreements only go so far when the story is this juicy. Sources close to the Plaza Athénée have confirmed that the bills were not sent to Meghan. They were directed elsewhere, and that elsewhere leads straight back to the fashion house. This completely changes the dynamic of what happened in Paris. This wasn't a collaboration between equals. This was a transaction. The brand paid for access to Meghan's name recognition, and Meghan accepted payment in the form of luxury accommodations and designer clothes. There's nothing wrong with that arrangement in theory, except both sides tried to pretend it was something else entirely. And here's the thing about lies. They only work when everyone sticks to the story. But when the creative director admits they barely knew each other, and the financial records show who really paid, and Meghan's own agency refuses to acknowledge the trip happened, the entire house of cards collapses. The fashion house is now dealing with backlash they didn't anticipate. They thought paying for Meghan would generate positive buzz. Instead, they're getting criticism for enabling a publicity stunt that overshadowed their actual work. And Meghan is facing questions she can't answer without admitting she didn't fund her own trip. But let's talk about the real reason Meghan wanted to go to Paris in the first place. This wasn't just about fashion. This wasn't just about rebuilding her brand or getting pretty photos for Instagram. This was about sending a message straight to the British monarchy. A big, bold, unmistakable message that said, I can come to Europe whenever I want, and you can't stop me. Think about the timing. Think about the location. Think about the statement she was making by showing up in Paris of all places, dressed to the nines, acting like she owned the city. She was proving that she doesn't need permission from the royal family to travel to Europe. She doesn't need their approval. She doesn't need their security arrangements. She can just hop on a plane, stay at a luxury hotel, and waltz around one of the most famous cities in the world without any involvement from the people she left behind. It was a power move, or at least it was supposed to be. Meghan wanted to show the world that she's thriving, that she's independent, that she's built a life where she makes her own decisions without royal constraints. And in her mind, this Paris trip was the ultimate proof of her freedom. But here's where this backfires spectacularly. While Meghan is gallivanting around Paris, proving she can travel internationally without any security issues, Harry is back in the United Kingdom, or trying to get there, begging the Home Office for full protection. He's been fighting this legal battle for months, demanding that the British government provide him with the same level of security he had when he was a working royal. He's arguing that he can't safely visit his home country without taxpayer-funded protection. And then his wife just undermined his entire argument. She proved that they can travel to Europe, stay in public hotels, attend high-profile events, and get home safely without the British government's help. She just showed that Harry's security concerns might be overblown or at least manageable without demanding that British taxpayers foot the bill. The optics are absolutely terrible. Harry is saying he needs maximum security to feel safe in the UK, while Meghan is proving they can navigate Europe just fine on their own. The British Home Secretary, looking at this situation, has every reason to deny Harry's demands. Why should the government pay for protection when Meghan just demonstrated they're perfectly capable of handling their own security arrangements? And let's be honest about what this really reveals. Meghan doesn't care how her actions affect Harry's legal battles. She doesn't care that she's making him look ridiculous. She wanted her Paris moment, and she took it, regardless of the consequences for her husband's ongoing court case. This is the same pattern that's played out again and again. Meghan makes impulsive decisions focused entirely on what she wants in the moment, and Harry is left dealing with the fallout. He's begging for security while she's proving they don't need it. He's trying to maintain some connection to his home country while she's flaunting her ability to bypass it entirely. Here's the exclusive detail that makes this entire disaster even more painful for Meghan. Before the Paris trip happened, before she crashed that fashion show and turned it into a circus, there were actual conversations happening behind the scenes. Senior figures at the fashion house were quietly discussing the possibility of making Meghan an informal ambassador for the brand. Not a full contract, not a major campaign, but a relationship that could benefit both sides if handled correctly. This was a legitimate opportunity. The kind of partnership that could have opened doors, generated steady income, and given Meghan the fashion world credibility she's been desperately chasing. All she had to do was play it smart, build the relationship slowly, show up when invited, respect the brand's heritage and vision, be professional. Instead, she did what she always does. She rushed in, demanded attention, and turned a potential long-term opportunity into a one-time publicity stunt that left everyone involved regretting their decision to give her a chance. Sources reveal that senior people inside the brand were appalled by how the Paris appearance unfolded. These are executives who understand the history of fashion, who remember what Paris meant to Princess Diana, who know that millions of people around the world still revere Diana's memory. And then Meghan shows up in Diana's city, trying to claim some of that magic for herself, turning it into a tacky photo opportunity that disrespected everything Diana represented. The comparison was inevitable, and it wasn't flattering. Diana attended fashion events with grace, humility, and genuine interest in the designer's work. She used her platform to elevate others, not overshadow them. Meghan did the opposite. She made the entire event about herself, laughed at a model's misfortune, and generated headlines that buried the collection under layers of drama. The senior executives who'd been considering that informal ambassador role immediately pumped the brakes. They realized what they were dealing with: someone who can't follow direction, someone who prioritizes personal publicity over brand reputation, someone who doesn't understand the difference between attention and respect. And here's what makes this so frustrating for anyone watching Meghan's career trajectory. She had it on a plate. Again, just like she had worldwide fame handed to her when she married into the royal family. Just like she had prestigious engagements and meaningful work offered to her during those early days as a working royal. Just like she had doors opening that most people could only dream of. And just like every other time, she kicked it all away at the 11th hour by doing something spectacularly stupid. It's almost like she wants to sabotage herself, like she can't handle success when it's within reach. The fashion house was ready to offer her exactly what she claimed to want, and she destroyed the opportunity before it could even materialize. Now those senior executives are quietly backing away, making sure their names aren't associated with whatever Meghan does next. The informal ambassador conversations have stopped, the phone calls have dried up, and Meghan is left wondering why another opportunity slipped through her fingers, never realizing that she's the common denominator in every failure. The photos started circulating almost immediately. Meghan in the back of a taxi, looking relaxed and carefree, with her feet propped up on the seats. It's the kind of casual moment that most people wouldn't think twice about in their personal lives, but when you're trying to position yourself as sophisticated, elegant, and worthy of high fashion's inner circle, those details matter. And the internet noticed. Critics pounced. Social media exploded with commentary about basic etiquette, about respect for shared spaces, about the difference between how Meghan presents herself and how actual fashion icons behave. It might seem like a small thing, but in the world of luxury brands and elite fashion, these moments add up. They create an impression, and the impression Meghan left was not the one she intended. The fashion house watched their carefully planned event get buried under an avalanche of Meghan-related controversy. The models who'd trained for weeks, who'd perfected their walks, who'd dreamed of this moment their entire careers, got pushed to the background. Their names didn't trend, their photos didn't go viral. Instead, every headline was about Meghan. Every social media post was dissecting her outfit, her behavior, her motivations. The makeup artists who'd created stunning looks for the show got zero recognition. The designers who'd spent months perfecting each piece saw their work reduced to that dress Meghan wore. The entire creative team behind the collection became invisible, overshadowed by someone who showed up at the last minute and hijacked their moment. And here's the thing about the fashion industry. It's built on relationships. It's built on respect for the craft, for the process, for the people who dedicate their lives to creating beauty. When someone treats a fashion show like a personal photo shoot, when they turn a designer's vision into a backdrop for their own publicity campaign, the industry remembers. People talk, reputations get damaged. The backlash wasn't just from random internet commenters, it was coming from inside the fashion world itself. Industry insiders were quietly expressing disappointment, frustration, and anger that their work had been treated so carelessly. The brand was hemorrhaging goodwill with the very people who matter most, the creatives and professionals who actually drive fashion forward. And Meghan seemed completely oblivious to the damage she'd caused. She was reportedly thrilled with the photos of herself leaving the hotel, dressed in designer gowns, looking like she belonged in that world. She thought this was her triumphant return to relevance. She believed she'd just opened doors to more fashion opportunities, more designer relationships, more invitations to exclusive events. But the phone stayed silent. No designers were calling. No brands were reaching out. The expected flood of opportunities never materialized. Because while Meghan was celebrating her Paris moment, the fashion world was collectively deciding they'd seen enough. The models whose spotlight she stole aren't going to forget. The designers whose work she overshadowed aren't going to rush to collaborate. The brand that paid her way is dealing with criticism they never anticipated. And all of it could have been avoided if Meghan had just shown up with humility, respect, and genuine appreciation for the opportunity she'd been given. So what does Meghan do when a publicity stunt backfires spectacularly? She pivots. Fast. Suddenly, the Paris Fashion Week appearance that was supposed to redefine her brand becomes something she needs people to forget about. And the quickest way to make people forget is to give them something new to talk about. Enter the charity circuit. Within days of the Paris disaster, Meghan was spotted in New York. Not at fashion events, not at designer showrooms, at charity functions. Back to the safe territory of good causes and community engagement. The kind of work that's hard to criticize. It's a classic move. When the glamour play doesn't work, retreat to philanthropy and hope people remember the good deeds instead of the embarrassing headlines. But here's what makes this damage control attempt so transparent. Meghan loves those hotel exit photos. Sources confirm she was absolutely thrilled with the images of herself leaving the Plaza Athénée in designer gowns, looking polished and glamorous. She thought those pictures would become iconic, the kind of shots that define a fashion moment and cement someone's status in elite circles. She imagined designers seeing those photos and immediately wanting to work with her. She pictured invitations flooding in from fashion houses, eager to dress her, collaborate with her, feature her in their campaigns. She believed this Paris trip would position her as a serious fashion player, someone who could command attention and respect in an industry notoriously difficult to break into. Except none of that happened. The phone stayed silent. No designers reached out. No brands extended invitations. No fashion houses expressed interest in future collaborations. The doors she thought she was opening remained firmly closed. And that silence is more damaging than any critical article could ever be. Because when the fashion industry collectively decides to ignore you, there's no coming back from that. These are people who notice everything, who remember every misstep, who value authenticity and respect above all else. And Meghan's Paris appearance demonstrated she possesses neither. So she's back in New York, attending charity events, smiling for cameras, trying to remind people that she cares about important causes. She's hoping the narrative shifts away from tacky publicity stunts and back toward meaningful work. She's banking on short attention spans and the public's willingness to give her another chance. But the charity pivot doesn't erase what happened in Paris. It doesn't change the fact that she crashed a fashion show, overshadowed an entire collection, laughed at someone's misfortune, and then got exposed for not even paying her own way. It doesn't fix the relationships she damaged or restore the opportunities she destroyed. And the people who matter, the industry insiders who could actually help her build a legitimate fashion presence, they're not watching her charity appearances in New York. They've already moved on. They've already decided Meghan Markle isn't worth the risk, the drama, or the inevitable controversy that follows her everywhere. So while Meghan poses with non-profit organizers and tries to look philanthropic, the fashion world is having conversations without her. Collections are being planned, campaigns are being developed, partnerships are being formed, and her name isn't coming up in any of those discussions. Let's bring this all together, because here's where the entire story collapses under the weight of its own contradictions. Nobody involved in this Paris Fashion Week debacle is telling the truth. Not the creative director, not Marcus Anderson, not Meghan, and certainly not the fashion house trying to distance itself from the financial arrangements that made this whole thing possible. The creative director says they were just texting back and forth, barely knew each other, coordinating a last-minute appearance. Meghan's team hints at a deeper connection, a mutual appreciation, an organic collaboration between fashion minds. The fashion house is now backtracking on who paid for what, suddenly vague about the hotel bills and transportation costs that insiders confirm they covered. Everyone's scrambling to rewrite their version of events because the original story fell apart the moment people started asking questions. And here's the problem with lying. You have to remember what you said. You have to coordinate with everyone else involved. You have to make sure the timeline makes sense, the details align, and nobody accidentally contradicts the official narrative. That takes skill, preparation, and people who actually know how to manage a crisis. Meghan doesn't have that. Her team can't even keep a simple story straight about how she ended up at a fashion show. If they can't be honest about something as basic as who reached out to whom first, what else are they hiding? If they're lying about the financial arrangements, what other details have been fabricated or conveniently omitted? The receipts tell one story, the interviews tell another, the agency's silence tells a third, and somewhere in the middle of all these conflicting narratives is the truth, buried under layers of spin and damage control and desperate attempts to salvage something positive from this disaster. Because that's what this was. A disaster, not the triumphant fashion moment Meghan envisioned. Not the brand relaunch Marcus allegedly orchestrated. Not the mutually beneficial collaboration the fashion house hoped for. Just a messy, poorly planned publicity stunt that left everyone involved looking worse than before. The fashion house is dealing with backlash from industry insiders who feel the brand compromised its integrity for cheap publicity. Marcus Anderson is watching a carefully cultivated relationship with Meghan deteriorate over her inability to follow basic guidance. The creative director is probably regretting that interview where he admitted they barely knew each other. And Meghan is in New York, pretending Paris never happened, hoping people forget about the hotel bills, the rejected dress, the laughing incident, and the agency that ghosted her. But the internet doesn't forget. The fashion industry doesn't forget. And the people who were considering giving Meghan opportunities definitely don't forget when someone proves they're more trouble than they're worth. So here we are, another Meghan Markle venture that started with grand ambitions and ended in embarrassment. Another opportunity wasted because she couldn't play the long game, couldn't follow advice, couldn't resist the urge to make everything about herself. Another chapter in a pattern that's becoming impossible to ignore. And the saddest part, she'll probably do it all over again with the next opportunity that comes her way.